Tele Aadsen, our next act, is from Sitka and Bellingham. She has been fishing since she was 7 years old, but she is also a writer. You may have been following her blog, Hooked, which was initially requested by friends who liked reading her posts on Facebook. If you're a Hooked fan like I am, I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to Tele tonight.
Are we good? Okay. So when Kitty invited me here tonight, she had a specific piece in mind that she suggested I share with you that I wrote in early September. And I think a lot of you are already familiar with that piece. So I wanted to share something new with you that was kind of the what happened next from that story, which is often a really important part of the story. I haven't tested it on any other audiences than you guys, so give it a go, man. This is called Images Found at Sea. After the Coast Guard hoisted Ryan Harris and the rescue swimmer out of the sea, the helicopter disappeared into the clouds, Sitka bound. Joel throttled up and angled the Nurka inland. I watched the empty tote bob in the sea behind us. Suddenly shaky, we settled in for our own, much longer transit back to town. With one eye on the rain-pocked windows and the other on my point-and-shoot's tiny display screen, Joel scrolled through the photos I'd taken. He stopped abruptly at one. "Oh my God, did you zoom in on his face?" What is it?" The helicopter had arrived on scene so immediately, we'd never gotten close enough to the man in the tote to see him clearly. Zoomed in tight, the photo revealed not a man at all, but a kid. We'd later learn he was freshly out of high school. God, his face! There's this collision of emotions that just rupture you. Joel continued to stare at the screen. He's so young, like how young I was when I took over the boat. He turned to me with a clouded Tongass green gaze. That could have been me. I forced myself to hold his eyes, knowing, hating the memory I saw reflected in them. In 2004, Joel was 22, newly running the boat he'd grown up on. Abruptly shouldering an adult's responsibilities upon his father's retirement, he was still an eager-to-prove-himself kid, standing tall on mountains of dreams and pebbles of caution. Though we were a couple, I wasn't ready to fish with Joel. Instead, I crewed for Martin, a lifelong friend, on the Charity. In the midst of our July king salmon opening, a nasty storm blew up, chasing the fleet off the Fairweather grounds. We ran for Lituya Bay, where rafts of trollers strung together in impromptu boat parties. The Charity, Aquila, Kathleen Joe, New Day, we were all there, all except the Nurka. Anxiety crept into my stomach. I asked Martin, "Has anyone called Joel?" He shrugged. "No, we wouldn't be able to get him from in here." Mere moments later, one of our fishing partners keyed the group radio. His voice was tight. "Joel's in trouble." A broken transmission crackled through the VHF speakers, followed by one of blade-sharp clarity. "Fishing vessel Nurka, this is Coast Guard Sector Juno. Understand you are taking on water." The fortress of glaciers between us barricaded Joel's response from our ears. But thin words slipped through. Water, engine room, 12 miles off Cape Spencer. The bay that had been a sanctuary became a prison. Helpless to do anything but stare at the radio, I clutched a pen like a lifeline and scribbled impotent fear and anger. What was he doing out there? Furious tears spattered the pages. My friend knew how to sit with grief. He offered quiet company, breaking the silence to ask, "Is there anything I can do?" I started to say no, then reconsidered. "Yeah, take my picture. I want Joel to see this." This, head in hand, glossy slug tracks down flushed cheeks, tears and snot dangling from nose. An ice age of pon-pons and scratchy updates later, the Nurka successfully anchored in Graves Harbor. The Coast Guard flew out an extra pump that Joel didn't end up needing. Within the calm of the anchorage, he found and fixed the water source. Deeply shaken, he was okay. When we reunited in Sitka a week later, the first thing I did was hug my sweetheart tight. The next thing was to hand him a copy of the photo in an envelope labeled, "To look at if you ever think about going out in conditions like that again." As sober as Joel's experience had left him, I wanted him to see the weighty responsibilities of his new role, a lesson for every fisherman. Even when we go to sea alone, our loved ones' trust and fears ride with us. Stony Huffman and Ryan Harris's remarkable survival sparked an international media frenzy. Through the stories that followed, no one saw that close-up photo. "It's too intimate," I told Joel. "It's not right to share something so private." That mama bear stance was about a young man's privacy, but also about my fleet mates. I wanted to shield them from an experience that we hate to see and hope to never wear. Salt-split grimace and eyes haunted by realization. The ocean we can't live without doesn't give a rip about us in return. This awareness lives deep within all seafaring people. But if we allowed it too near our surface, we'd never leave the dock. So we bury it deep and learn to manage the things we can, maintaining vessels and equipment, training for emergencies, watching the weather and using our best judgment. We approach our work with the confidence that those things will be enough. Proud to feed the world, proud of our tough boats, proud of our independence and endurance. We start to imagine we're in control out there. But control is an illusion. When the wind comes up fast and the green water suddenly slams our windows, that expression flickers across our faces, and we swallow hard. Waters familiar as family become the monster we know drools under the bed, clacking its claws and biding its time. We tell ourselves that if we resist leaning over, peeling back the blankets, and looking him full in the face, we might make it through the night, through the trip, through the season. But for much of the landlocked public, that monster is the story of what we do. It's the beastliest elements of fishing, the most extreme weather, obstacles, and risk that pop culture loves most. I cringed to think of our deepest dread up for public consumption, splashed across TV screens, narrated by the breathless exclamations of those who'd never tasted fear at sea. We all know that taste. Sitka is a community of mariners, people as likely to boat to work as we are to bike. If you're not a fisherman yourself, your neighbor is, your kid's best friend's parents are, or the person you're sitting next to tonight is. We know the relief that floods our bloodstream as we slide through the breakwater, slide through the ringing, pinging, buzzing, bustling yammer of connectedness, gladly sacrificing constant access for a moment of silence and access to ourselves. We know, too, that the gentle hand ruffling our hair can shift to a vicious smack without warning. We've all stared at silent radios, desperate to hear word. We've stood at the mariner's wall, fingertips tracing the names of those who didn't come home. Sitkans don't need a photo to know what lives in a survivor's eyes. As the world gobbled the viral story, fishermen processed differently. We drew to each other like magnets, crowding harbor parking lots in the Isles of Murray Pacific. Fleet elders recalled struggling to get into survival suits in the swimming pool's still waters. "I couldn't do it," said one. Another said, "I finally did, but it sure wasn't easy." A troller in the back door told me he'd texted another captain minutes before we'd sighted Ryan, suggesting, "If we all pull our gear and run a quarter-mile grid up the coast, we'll find him." One after another, fishermen described a day of binoculars in hand, continuing to scan the gray waters long after believing the worst. At the fuel dock, a gruff veteran approached Joel. "Man, I'll tell ya, me and about half the fleet burst into tears when you came on the radio saying you saw him." We speculated what the men would take from their survival. Was the captain already thinking of his next boat, or searching for a new path on solid ground? Would either swear off the sea? With our town chores done, Joel and I headed back out, returning to fish the same strip of cruise-off coastline where the Caitlin Ray had gone down 6 days earlier. Deja vu huffed unpleasantly on the back of my neck, and I yanked my orange hood up against sideways rain. As the Nurka coasted deep seas of mercury, I studied the trollers rising and falling alongside us. Some were vessels I'd spent long, laughter-filled nights aboard. Others made my blood pressure ratchet, seeing them cross-tack their way up the drag. Our fleet is an unlikely potpourri of former hippies, young families, emphatic tea partiers, and equally fierce greenies, fishing partners, rivals, lifelong friends, and some folks who don't like each other one bit. In another place, removed from the ocean, we'd allow our differences to divide us. We'd throw up fences and draw our blinds, sneering at our neighbors' ignorant ways. But in this place, there's no allowance for prideful division. In our deepest moments of need, these waters truly are thicker than blood. Pushing my Gertie handle into gear, I thought again of the faces in those 2 photographs. One person desperate to hear her loved one would survive, another who might not have. Even after wearing the first expression, it never occurred to me to leave this life. What is it, I wondered, that draws some of us so deeply to what could so easily devour us? Would I feel differently after a night adrift in the waves, meeting the monster face to face? Would you? Thanks, guys.